Today I fucked up by not showering with my best friend. Obligatory not today. This happened 9 years ago, but I only realized today it was a fuck up. I, 27F, was talking to my husband, 28M, about the differences between girlfriendships and boyfriendships. Mainly we were discussing that girls are generally more physically affectionate with each other than boys are. I decided to bring up an example about the best friend I had when I was 16 until 20. We would spoon watching films, hold hands, cuddle asleep during sleepovers, etc. Then I mentioned we would practice kissing each other so we'd be experts whenever we kissed boys. At this point my husband stopped me to say that that's not friendly affection. It's worth pointing out that I am bisexual, so for some reason I somehow assumed he was saying I couldn't have been affectionate with my friend because of this. I began defending it. No, it wasn't like that, and then went on to prove it by saying we even used to take turns showering together and the other would just chill in the bathroom chatting with us. He was baffled by this and asked why. I didn't really have an answer other than whenever I was at her house, and we had the place to ourselves, she'd always want to try a new face mask or hair dye / product, and while we initially would take turns showering, she suggested we both just stay in the room to keep each other company. ETA, I swear thought I'd mentioned this, but apparently not. When she suggested the shower thing, she initially said we should shower together to save water and time since we could help wash each other's hair, etc. I panicked and kind of babbled excuses about how we wouldn't both fit and it would be just as quick to wait for the other to finish, hence why we ended up sitting in the bathroom while the other showered, then swapping. I then pointed out she knew I was bi and I'd never wanted her to feel uncomfortable, so I'd always made sure when she was showering to look away, and if she asked me to look over for any reason I would completely maintain eye contact the entire time, which to me proved it was nothing romantic at all. I pointed out how difficult I found the entire experience because I'd had a massive crush on her and she'd always made jokes about how we didn't need boys because we had each other / she wished we could just live together and make out all the time, which just made the crush worse. Anyway, after some back and forth with my husband, who at this point was crying with laughter after I'd explained how hard it was to maintain the eye contact since often she'd ask me to look at stretch marks / freckles / ends of her hair, he finally got me to realize she was very likely trying to sleep with me, and I'd been so worried about revealing my crush and ruining our friendship I hadn't noticed. Too long didn't read, was so scared of friend finding out about my crush I didn't realize she may have been trying to seduce me. I've always been that girl that will straight up say you wanna make out? Or you wanna have sex? It takes some people by surprise, but my husband appreciates it. I, male, always missed the obvious cues when a girl was trying to seduce me. So it's a small relief that girls sometimes miss these cues also. Man, a girl I like had me drive out to a remote street and look at the stars after a dance. I didn't realize she wanted me to kiss her till 3 years later. Edit, as context has gotten buried, the way I found out is that we later dated and she told me. As a lady who also likes men and ladies, I can confirm those kind of hints are so easy to miss with women. Are you being friendly or wink wink friendly? I have signed goodbye comments in my yearbook from high school. I was and still am in some ways dumb as fuck when it came to girls then, women now. There were 3 girls I didn't really talk to much outside of having the same classes with them over the years. They all put their phone numbers at the end with a bunch of flourishes, flowers or hearts. Funny thing is, I'm deaf. I was the only deaf kid at that school and everybody knew I was deaf due to that fact. Past me didn't even think twice about it, and I put the books away until I found them years later with my wife looking through the garage. I opened my senior yearbook and started reminiscing from the notes from my friends and what we did in HS. I come across the first phone number and showed her. My wife asked me if I ever called the number. I told her no, and asked her why. Still clueless lol, she stifled a giggle and started teasing me about how dumb I can be sometimes. She had me read them as if she wrote them, and I finally saw it. I realized that they they liked me and wanted to hang out. Always had a nagging feeling though, why the hell would anyone give a deaf person a phone number to call? This is before cell phones, email, video relay interpreting services. If you don't mind me commenting on the phone number thing, precisely because of the times it was, giving your phone number was the thing you did to indicate you wanted to stay in touch. I doubt any of the girls actually paused to think about the specifics of how it would work for a deaf person. Today I fucked up by telling a customer they're bad at their job. This happened a couple of years ago, but is by far the biggest fuck up I've ever committed. I was working in a cinema at the time and Avengers Endgame was out. I was working the day shift in the week, so it was relatively quiet. A woman came out of her Avengers screening complaining about the sound balance. I went to check in the screen and the movie sounded normal. So I went to check the sound level on the speakers and they were all set to the normal levels. Came back and explained to the woman that all of our levels were normal. She insisted that they weren't. Now, I'm somewhat of a movie buff and have noticed a trend in recent years of action films having really poor sound mixing. The dialogue is usually too quiet and the action too loud. I don't know where this trend came from, but everyone seemed to finally realize when Tenet came out and they couldn't hear a damn thing anyone was saying. So, I said to her that that's just how Endgame sounds. That for whatever reason, the sound mix has made the dialogue too quiet and that I find it to be a really annoying stylistic choice in modern filmmaking. The look of rage that engulfed her face cannot be described. I don't think I've ever seen someone go from 0 to 100 on the anger meter that fast. I am the sound mixer, she said. Turns out she worked at Pinewood Studios and was the person responsible for what I had just described as bad sound design to her face. She went on a whole tirade about how she knows more than me, as I just had to stand there and take it. I still stand by my belief that the sound mixing in Endgame was not good, but I never thought I'd end up saying that to the person responsible for it. Too long didn't read. Was working at a cinema and a customer complained about Endgame being too quiet. I told her the sound mix was bad. Turns out she was one of the sound mixers for the movie. Edit, I am talking about Pinewood Studios in London, England, not the one in Atlanta, Georgia. Edit 2, there's no need to call her a bitch, guys. I've had far more hostile customers, believe me. Maybe she was just having a bad day. I'm sure she's a nice person. Edit 3, please stop suggesting that I should have taken her to personally inspect the equipment. I would have been fired for breaking a myriad of rules. It was a no-win situation. Edit 4, the cinema in question wasn't far from several major production studios and several high-profile location sites for big Hollywood movies. So the odds of me serving someone who worked on Endgame, which was partially made essentially down the road from me, are actually pretty high. Edit 5, she might have worked at Shepperton Studios, which is next to Pinewood. I'm honestly not sure which one it was. Final edit, I promise, I fully acknowledge that she knows more about sound mixing than me or most of the people in this thread. However, as consumers, we have a right to voice our opinion if we don't like a product. The fact that the vast majority of the commenters agree that action films nowadays are way too loud in some places and quiet in others shows that there is clearly a problem. You don't have to be a professional chef to know if your food tastes bad, and you don't need to be a professional sound mixer to know if a movie sounds like trash. You're right. Can't watch a Marvel film at home without constantly changing volume. Check your sound settings on your TV. If you have a night mode and turn it on, it equalizes the volumes so the action scenes aren't blowing your eardrums out and the talking scents aren't all whispers. I worked at the Genius Bar years ago and this customer was asking why their Sprint service was slow and bad compared to their last carrier, Verizon. Basically went on talking about how bad Sprint is in our area and how their data is the slowest you can get. Turns out, a Sprint exec was at the table when I did all this and called to complain. I did not feel bad at all. Sorry for telling the truth. Stop being shitty. Yeah, my family switched to Sprint for a while and loved the unlimited data. The running joke in our family was they could offer cheap unlimited data because you never had cell signal to use it. If she was in charge of it, why was she complaining about it? She was convinced our speakers were programmed incorrectly. Every film comes with a recommended sound setting and it's usually 5.5. The sound mix for that movie did suck in the theater. I agree 100%, if I had bigger balls I would have told her she should have done a better job. Instead I just became a deer in the headlights and took a verbal beatdown. Today I fucked up by finding a lifeless body while breaking in a school illegally. So as in every post, this happened several years ago. I will try to keep the story as short as possible. So me and a friend have the great tradition of breaking in a school once a year. We used to go into the school in the evening, then hide in 2 lockers until everyone left. Then we usually have a great time by ourselves drinking and eating snacks. There have been a few occasions where really crazy stuff happened, but the wildest one is this: we just came out of the lockers and wanted to start the party. As we walked down the stairs to get our booze, we saw what we thought was a dead body outside the building. To give some context, it was nighttime and winter, so dark and cold AF. We are at that point kind of panicking. We can't call the police and tell them where we have seen the body, so we put a little stone between the door, so we can come in again later. BC we had all our stuff in the school. We go on the roof of the school, where you can go to even when the school is closed. Luckily, the body is also visible from there. It lays like on the edge of the roof, but not a roof where you should go, like further down. So we call the police and tell them we saw a body. A few minutes later, the police, firemen and an ambulance arrive. They get the body. It's a boy, around 14 years of age. He is drunk AF, can't respond to them and has a broken collarbone and is under normal temperature. They take him to the hospital and begin to ask us stuff. We lie a lot BC. They ask us why we are here, where we have seen him etc. They even brought a detective, who should ask us separately. So we're in a really dumb situation. BC we didn't talk about an alibi. So we tell them that we really wanna go home, we're so tired etc. and they let us go. All the police cars etc. are standing right in front of the door. We put a stone in between. In a brief moment, we sprint to the door and run inside again, where we drank ourselves to sleep. So yeah, turns out the boy was drinking with his friend. His friend fell asleep, meanwhile he fell down the roof. His friend wakes up, can't see him and decides to go home. What left the boy in the cold, asleep/unconscious. Moral of the story: something a little illegal can save someone's life. TL, Dr. I broke in a school, saw a lifeless body out of the window, on the roof. Had to lie to the police a bit, then snuck inside the school again and drank booze. Edit, I'm a girl from Switzerland for those asking. My school's lockers were not large enough to hold a backpack, let alone a human. So my friend and I broke back into the school and kept drinking, where this kid had just nearly died drinking with his friend. What was the country this happened in? Switzerland. Doesn't sound like you fucked up, it sounds like you did the right thing. Chaotic good lol.